and thank you for standing by. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. During the question-and-answer session, please press star 1 on your touch-tone phone if you'd like to ask a question. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Ms. Jenny Carolee-Witch. You may begin.
Hi, actually, we're going to start with James Whitehorn. I'm the Chief of the Redistricting Data Office here at Census. And I just wanted to welcome everyone to the 2020 Census Redistricting Data Program Phase 1 training. We appreciate you taking the time to come and learn about the Block Boundary Suggestion Project and the new Geographic Update Partnership software that we usually refer to as GUPS. The training today will focus on the use of the GUPS software. We feel that this will be valuable even for those of you who plan to use your own software. The principles, the workflow, and the update activities that are demonstrated are ones that you will also be doing when you're using your own GIS. The GUPS is designed to streamline these actions, but they can all be accomplished using standard GIS software. So I'd like to start by giving you some background and context for the Redistricting Data Program and the Block Boundary Suggestion Project specifically. The Redistricting Data Program was established to address the Census Bureau's responsibilities under Public Law 94-171. In 1975, the states banded together to get PL 94-171 passed because they had an acute need for specific geographies in order to create the districts that met the judicially established requirement of one person, one vote, and other requirements under the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So in 1980, the first census after the passage of PL 94-171, Census produced blocks for all incorporated places with a population of 10,000 or more and for statewide coverage in 5 states that contracted for that coverage. When that data was released, a disconnect between the blocks that states need for precincting and what Census had produced became apparent. Census produces blocks that are useful for our purposes, for our enumerators, but the states need blocks that enable them to create precincts that keep communities together. So an example of this is Census uses street center lines for block boundaries to assist enumerators who need to be routed around a block to ensure we get complete coverage. The state, when designing its precincts, usually wants to keep neighbors in the same precinct, so a better boundary for that block would be a rear alleyway or a rear lot line behind the house, and that way neighbors can be kept together in their district. So when working in BBSP, it's important to think about the work you do at the local and precinct level. You'll want to look for features not represented by Census as likely block boundaries, but that are being used as your current precinct boundaries, anticipated precinct boundaries, or ones that you generally feel would make a good precinct boundary should someone choose to use it. For the first time, we're producing what we're calling prototype blocks. These prototype blocks are what the 2020 census blocks would be if we had to create them today using the geography as it is in the current Tiger Census database. By reviewing these prototype block files, you can identify features that you need or anticipate needing as block boundaries that we wouldn't otherwise hold. In addition, this file also contains something called a block size indicator. This is an ordinal value, and it is designed to indicate the number of households approximately within the block. This will help you locate large household blocks. If you have an ideal precinct size and the block size indicator shows that the prototype block would exceed this, you can then use the BBSP tools and functions to find a way to split that block and make it more manageable for your post-census redistricting and precincting. Finally, the Block Boundary Suggestion Project provides you with the ability to update special areas such as state park boundaries, military base boundaries, prison area boundaries, and others that can be used as block boundaries so that both data can be reported for these areas and also so you can account for them when precincting and districting. Since we have a limited amount of time today, and to make sure you get the most impactful demonstration, we're purposely leaving out a couple of updates that are available to you. We're leaving out point landmarks and the creation of block area groupings. Since point landmarks do not really affect the creation of blocks, and block area groupings are seldom used and are only available for areas where you have islands, they're used to consolidate 2 or more islands into a single block. We've chosen to leave those out of this demonstration. We are, however, more than happy to respond to questions about these updates on a one-on-one basis if you call our office. So in today's training, we have several presenters who will walk you through the workflow as it's illustrated in the participant guides we sent out and that are posted on the Redistricting Data Office website. The presenters will pause after every few lessons to solicit any questions that have come up based on the demonstrations that they've just been through. We may ask to follow up on a one-on-one basis for questions that are situationally unique due to the time constraints, but we will entertain all questions periodically throughout the demonstration. So with that, I'll introduce the three presenters that we'll have today. We have Jenny Karolevich. She is the new team lead in the Redistricting Data Office over our geographic updates. We have Drew Stanislaw. He's a geographer in our geography division. And we have Lauren Kirsch, who is a geographic team lead in our geography division. And the three of them will be walking you through these different demonstrations, and we hope this will be a very valuable exercise for you. And with that, I'll hand over to Jenny.
Thank you, James. So I'm going to go over lessons 1 and 2, going over what GUPS, how it's going to be set up and what it's going to look like when you install it, and then move on to linear features. So I felt the best way to mimic the GUPS setup was to take screenshots tailored to you guys installing the DVD. So when you open GUPS for the first time, you're going to encounter the map management screen. This is where you input your program, your state, and the working county. For these examples, like the test data that we sent out, we're using Shelby County, Tennessee. So as demonstrated, select the Block Boundary Suggestion Program, and again, Shelby County, Tennessee. You can see that Fayette and Tipton counties are highlighted. Those are adjacent counties. If you click the box next to them, they'll be added to your workspace. For the purposes of this demonstration, we're not. So you click Open. You're going to be presented with a second screen. It's going to ask you where you want to pull data in from. We recommend that you use the CD/DVD option. We included this data in our BBSP mailing. It includes all the shapefiles and the block size shapefiles. Other options include getting data from your computer or automatically downloading data from the Census website. However, the Census website will not provide the block size shapefiles. The third screen that will come up is the loading screen. It will take a few minutes for everything to load. Once you've gone through those steps, this is what your screen will look like. So you can see that we have Shelby County, Tennessee pulled up. To the left of the map area, we have our data set up. You can see all the layers. They're pre-symbolized, and this is where you can adjust the layer symbology, which we'll demonstrate later, adding layers or removing layers. At the top of the screen, we have our menu bar with typical actions, saving, exiting GUPS. Below the menu bar up here, we have the standard toolbar, and there are several important tools on this toolbar, including the Save button, Map Management, which brings up the first screen that we demonstrated, as well as the Search tool, which we will show later, as well as your panning and zooming tools. So below the standard toolbar, we have our BBSP toolbar. Most of these tools will be demoed during the webinar today. On the left of the screen, we have our Add Data toolbar, where you can add shapefiles or web mapping services, as well as other tools and services to your session. And at the bottom of the screen, we have our status bar, where you can see we have coordinates and scale. Okay, now that we talked about what we're looking at and how we're going to look at it, let's move on to linear features. So for BBSP, you can add linear features, delete linear features, or change linear features. The linear features that we are talking about are listed right here on the screen, and they're also in the user's manual. These examples that I'm showing today are going to demonstrate adding roads. Okay, so I'm ready to start working. I have my setup. So I'm going to play the role as somebody from Shelby County making these updates. I know what I have to do. I know what roads I have to add, and I know what roads I have to delete. So to navigate closer to an area, I'm going to use the search tool. It will load in 1 second. There we go. And you can see that the county is listed. And we can search by place, tract, block, landmark, or street name. For this example, I'm going to use street name. And all the street names are listed here, but I know which one I want to navigate towards, and that's Lansdowne Lane. My options are I can click Find, which will navigate to the area and leave this box open, or do Find and Close, which will navigate to the area and close this dialog, which I'm going to do. Okay, so I'm in the general vicinity of the road I want to add. So I'm going to add a shapefile to this. It's Shelby County data where I have the roads already digitized, so I can trace over them. So I'm going to select the Add Vector Layer tool from the Data toolbar. And for source and encoding, I'm not going to touch anything, but I will navigate to where I have the shapefile. You can see right here, Shelby County data source. I click Open. I click Open, and it is plotted at the top of my layers. So I like having my roads that I know I have to add, but I also like having imagery. GUPS has imagery with it, included with it, but due to technical limitations on this computer we're using, we're going to add a web mapping service, which you might want to do while you're making updates to add your own imagery sources. So it is, again, on the Add Data toolbar. It's right here at Add WMS. If you were adding a new web mapping service, you'd hit New, add the name, URL, any authentication data you need. But I prepared for this webinar, so I already have my web mapping service loaded. And you can see it right here. So I'm going to click Connect. And this step right here, this is to get past the Census firewall. If you have to bypass any firewalls, you may have to do this step as well, but this is not a part of GUPS right now. Okay? So you can see once I connected, my web mapping service is right here. I'm going to highlight it and add it. Okay. I'm going to close my window. So I see my web mapping service. I'm going to start pulling it down to the bottom of my layers so other things are showing up on top. And all I'm doing is clicking the mouse, holding, and moving it down. So, because I want to see the symbolization on the edges, which will be explained in later lessons. Okay, so you can see right here, I want to add this road, Enclave Hollow Lane West. So I'm going to select the Add Linear Feature tool, and you can see that my mouse becomes the cursor to draw. So I zoomed in a little more, and to draw this linear feature, I'm just going to click at the intersection and draw as I go, looking at imagery in my shapefile. When I'm done, I right-click, and it asks me for the name and the MTFCC, which is a Mass Tiger Feature Classification Code. Like I said, I know this is Enclave Hollow Lane West, and you can see that I am using abbreviations. And here are the possible linear features to add, and I'm going to navigate down to S1400, which is the code for local road. I'm going to click OK. And you can see that I've added Enclave Hollow Road. I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove my Shelby County source. And yes. Okay, So I'm going to delete a linear feature. And I'm going to use the coordinates to navigate there because I know where it is this way. I just type in the new coordinates. And before I do that, I'm going to turn my web mapping service off in case. Okay. So I'm in a new area, and this Knight Arnold Road right here, I want to delete that. It looks like it's just a dead-end road, and I'm Shelby County, so I know I want to remove this. So I'm going to click the Delete Linear Feature tool, and I click on Knight Arnold Road. And it asks me if I'm sure that I want to permanently delete this linear feature. Quick caveat, when we do deletes in GUPS, you're adding a change type to the attribute table. So the road is not being deleted itself from the submission, but it's coded to be deleted. Okay, when you see I made that delete, you can see the symbolization changed. But my supervisor came over and he said, why are you deleting that road? You shouldn't have. So I'm going to click on Knight Arnold Road again, and it asks me if I want to restore the line. And I hit yes, and it's back in there. Note, you can only restore linear features that were already in the submission. If I deleted Enclave Hollow Lane West, I would not be able to restore it. Okay, and the last part of linear features I'm going to go over real quick is changing the attributes. So I'm going to go to the Modify Linear Feature Attribute tool, and I know that Arbor Grove Way, it should be Arbor Grove Way North. So I'm going to select it, and I could also change the MTFCC, but I don't need to. So all I'm going to do is type in north correctly. I'm going to hit save, and you can see that the change was made. So I know some of you are thinking right now, if you use add and delete, that's a way to reshape roads in Tiger. So I have some examples of areas where you would not want to reshape and areas where you would want to reshape. And again, when we're talking reshaping, we're talking about deleting the current feature and adding it in new, closer to imagery or how it looks. So we have an example right here. This is an example where you would not want to delete this road and add it back in. It's not perfect. However, the road generally follows the features and the housing units are on the correct side. Another example of a road you wouldn't want to necessarily delete and add right now is this road right here. It doesn't follow the road perfectly, but again, it's close and no housing units are involved. This is an example where you might possibly want to reshape. This road right here does not exist, and you'd want to delete this and re-add it in where it belongs. And I'm very proud to say that I made this example up. We don't have any errors this bad in Shelby County, Tennessee, so I had to make my own. Okay, and this might seem like a very odd time to do this, but I want to show you how to save your project, close it, and then reopen it up. So I like the edits I made. I'm going to click Save. Okay, and it says where it's saved to. Yes, I would like to. I'm going to turn off my web mapping service, and I'm going to exit. And it's asking me if I want to save again, because I turned off the web mapping service. Okay. So I'm going to open GUPS again. And when I open it up, this mirrors what I showed in the beginning. You're presented with your map management screen. If you were importing a zip file, if you were a state liaison and somebody shared the data with you, you would use this, which we'll talk about more later. And you have two options. You can either open recent, you can see that's Shelby County right there, or I can go through the menus, Block Boundary Suggestion Program, go to Tennessee, and go down to Shelby, and click Open. Since I have the web mapping service up, this is our firewall. Okay, it's thinking. And you can see that Shelby County opened right where I closed it. So that's it for lessons 1 or 2. I think we're going to move on to our first question and answer session. Operator, can you see if there are any questions?
Thank you. Participants on the phone, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name. Please make sure your phone is unmuted and record your first and last name clearly when prompted. To withdraw your request, please press *2. Again, if you'd like to ask a question at this time, please press *1 and record your name. One moment for incoming questions. Our first question comes from Amy. Please state your affiliation.
Yes, this is Amy Bittner with the state of Wyoming. And my first question is, can you show, you mentioned that the 2020 prototype blocks are included. Can you show that feature?
Yes, in a lesson that we have coming up a little bit later that Lauren's going to conduct, she's going to show how to bring in the prototype block and how to use it for what we call the block size review. So we will have that a little bit later. And then once she does that, if you need some more information around that, then there'll be another question session about that.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Nick Barris. Please state your organization.
Hi, Nick Barris, Washington Secretary of State's office. Sorry, just checking, and I'm sure I can find this somewhere else. Is this intended to be the main source of information, like on new road construction, or do you have other programs you'll be relying on for that?
We have several programs that will rely on that. We allow for the redistricting community, since they tend to look at the geography at such a fine level because they need to look at things down at sort of the precinct, small area geography level. We allow them to provide any feature updates that they need. But we also have programs like the GSSI, which is the Geographic Support Initiative, where they're collecting addresses and features on a national basis. It's a program that's actually underway now to get our local and state files in and update Tiger with those in advance of the onslaught of geographic programs that will be coming closer towards the decennial. Features can also be added through the Boundary and Annexation Survey. So there's several opportunities out there to get features in. This is just features especially that you need or you know that you'll want to create blocks from going forward for your political geography.
Thank you.
At this time, I'm showing no other questions in the queue.
All right, so then thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the next lesson with Andrew Stanislaw.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Stanislaw, and I'm a geographer in the Geography Division here at Census. And I'm going to be starting with Lesson 3, which is Area, Landmark, and Legal Boundary Review. And in this lesson, I'll demonstrate how to review and modify area landmarks as well as legal entities, such as incorporated places, minor civil divisions, and counties. Let me just pull up PowerPoint real quick here. All right. Did I do that or? Oh, that one, right? Okay. So here on the screen you can see the acceptable new area landmarks or hydrographic areas that can be edited using the GUPS software. So area landmarks typically are things like hospitals, jails, parks, cemeteries, and then it also includes hydrographic areas such as lakes, ponds, bays, things like that. It's important to review the accuracy of the area landmark boundaries because they will often serve as 2020 block boundaries. As James mentioned earlier, you want to pay particular attention to military installations, national parks, universities, and prison facilities, all of which are planned 2020 block boundaries. All right, so I'm going to go back into GUPS and demonstrate how you would make edits to area landmarks and legal areas. For area landmarks, there's a number of edits that you can make. You can do boundary corrections, which would be adding and removing area. You can create a new area landmark or a new hydrographic area, and you can also remove an area landmark or hydrographic area, as well as change or add a name. All area landmark modifications are done using the Modify Area Feature tool. It's this button here on your BBSP toolbar. You can also access it through the GUPS menu up here, doing geography review, and you can see the same icons are available from this menu as well. So I'm going to go ahead and open Modify Area Feature. And all the tools should be dockable. You can just dock it here, and you can see you can go back to the layers. There's tabs, or you can just kind of let it float around if you prefer to do that. So the first thing I'm going to show you is selecting the geography. So on this tab, you have the choice of selecting an area landmark, if you're going to modify that, and then you can also select legal geography. So you can select consolidated city, county, MCD, or place. We'll go ahead and start with area landmarks. When you select the geography, here in the table of contents, you'll see all the area landmarks that are in your working county will display. If you want to zoom to them, you can click on them like this, zooming to the various features. You can also navigate between the areas using the arrow keys here. So if you want to just kind of do like a quick cursory review of what your area landmarks are, you can do that. So the first thing I'm going to do is demonstrate how to add area to an area landmark. So I'm going to go down here to Fuller State Park, and you can see the outline of the park pretty clearly. And let's say that you know that the state park now extends all the way up to Lake McKellar up here. There's a number of ways you can do this. You want to start by selecting the areas. You can select, like if you're going to add all this area, you can select face by face like this, or you can do like select by polygon, which is probably better if you're going to be adding a large area. So let's say you want to add this entire area. You can go ahead and select some of the polygons that are already in the park, and that's not a problem. So go ahead and select that. And I've selected all of these faces, and you just simply click on the Add Area button. And that will add all those faces or all those polygons to Fuller State Park. Very similar, if you want to remove an area, you simply select a face. So let's say that this face up here in the upper right-hand corner actually is no longer in Fuller State Park. You simply select it, and then you hit Remove Area, and that will remove that area from the park. Another feature for the modify area feature tool is that you can create new area landmarks. So let's just scroll over to another area. Let's say that you know that there is a park down here just south of Elder Road. You go to the select features again. You can select the face. If you want to select multiple faces using this tool, you just hit the Control tab and you can select additional faces. For adding a new entity, there's a button here that is Add Entity. You just simply click on that and a dialog box will pop up and you can enter the full name and the MTFCC of your new area landmark. So I'm just going to call this Census Park, and you select the MTFCC and call it a park. Just click OK, and that'll be saved. Another thing that you can do with this Modify Area Feature tool is you can modify the attributes. So let's say that we'll go back to Fuller State Park, and you want to modify the attributes of this. You just click on the Modify Attribute button, and let's say that it's actually not a state park, but it's a county park. So you could change the MTFCC to a county park, and you can change the name to Fuller County Park and say OK to save. The last feature on this toolbar is deleting an area feature. So let's say Census Park, which we created earlier, is now in your table of contents, and we can just go ahead and delete that. And whenever you delete an area feature, whether it's an area landmark or a legal entity, it's always going to ask you, are you sure you want to permanently delete this? So hopefully that will prevent people from mistakenly deleting things. You just hit OK, and that'll remove it, or it'll flag that area for deletion. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the legal boundary review. As James mentioned earlier, for the 2020 BBSP program, you are allowed to submit legal boundary updates, so things like annexations, de-annexations, new incorporations. You can do this for the first time, and this is for counties, minor civil divisions, incorporated places, and consolidated cities. And you'll be able to do this during both phases of the BBSP. So you're going to use the same tool, the Modify Area Feature tool. You just simply select the geography that you want to work with. So we'll go to incorporated places this time, and it'll list all the incorporated places in your working county. I should mention also that, one of the important things about incorporated places in any legal geography is that the boundaries of these types of geography are always going to be 2020 block boundaries. So it's important that we have accurate boundaries for that. Okay, so the way you modify legal entities is really the same as area landmarks. So let's just go to, you can kind of just scroll through if you want to see, the same way that you would the area landmarks. You can select it and zoom, or you can use the arrow keys. So I'm going to go up here to, let's see, Bartlett's, let's go into Bartlett City. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit. All right. So let's say that you have a small boundary correction. You know that the boundary really should go along Rainier Creek. You simply select the area. You can do this again and add the geography. So it's very similar to the area landmark. The main difference is that a dialog box will appear, and you have to choose the change type. So your choice is either boundary correction, legal change, offset, or corridor. For the BBSP program, you're going to either choose boundary correction or legal change. If you think you have an offset or a corridor that you want to report, you can contact the RDO office and get some more information on that, but we're just going to be demonstrating the boundary correction and legal change. So for any sort of small spatial correction, you're going to do boundary correction and just hit OK, and it'll just add the area to your place. If you have an annexation, you do the same sort of thing. You select the geography, select the face that you want to add, and if you know that this is an annexation, you would add it and select legal change and click OK. When you select legal change, a new dialog box is going to appear. So legal documentation for BBSP participants is not required, but we strongly encourage you to submit the documentation if you have it to help us process the legal updates. If you do not have documentation and you know it's annexation or a de-annexation, you can submit it as a boundary correction, and the census will do the research on that. But assuming that you have the documentation, you would put in the effective date of the annexation. So let's just say that it's, well, let's go ahead and use the calendar. So let's say it was January 1st of this year. The authority type is a ordinance. Under docu, you could put the ordinance number. So let's just say it's A01. And if you want to provide additional documentation, you can click on the folder and attach like a Word document or a text file with that documentation, but that's not required. And then change type, select annexation. Go ahead and click OK. And that face is added to your incorporated place. Okay. Next thing I'm going to demonstrate is creating a new entity. Again, it's very similar to how we did it with the area landmarks. It's almost the same process. So let's say that you have a new incorporated place up here. I'm going to go ahead and select the faces. And I'm going to say add entity. And again, if you're going to do a new incorporation or a disincorporation, you'll be required to provide some legal documentation. So let's just call this Census Town, and the LSAD will be Town. Effective date, go ahead and do January 1st again. Pick the authority type of ordinance and A02. Go ahead and click OK. And we have a new town created. Now I intentionally left a hole in this town just so that we can demonstrate a QC tool later in the demonstration. Another thing that you can do, which probably won't happen, but you do have this delete option. So, but again, you get a warning that says, "Are you sure you want to permanently delete this?" So we'll go ahead and hit cancel on that, because there'll probably be very rare instances that you're going to be deleting a place. Okay. The next demonstration, I go ahead and do that, right? Lesson 4? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on to the 2010 extension review, lesson 4. So if you go along the BBSP toolbar, you'll see a button here that says Feature Extension Review, and it has a little 2010 there. And this is important because the 2010 feature extensions, now first of all, I should say that these are feature extensions that if you participated in the program in 2010, these were any of the feature extensions that were created during that last decade's BBSP program. So we're giving you the opportunity to review these because these feature extensions are not automatically held as block boundaries for 2020. So this review provides an opportunity to determine if the extension should be held for 2020. We're going to discuss linear feature extensions in a little more detail later in the webinar, but for those new to the concept, extensions are non-visible lines that extend from the end of a road to a non-road feature, and their function is primarily to split large blocks. And I'll show you a few of those. If you click on the 2010 feature extension tool, this dialog box opens up. Go ahead and move this over here. And if you do not have any 2010 feature extensions, you'll just hit find and it'll say there are no feature extensions in your county. For this demonstration, we have quite a few. So I'll go ahead and hit find and it'll do a quick query and pull up all your 2010 feature extensions. Okay. So the navigation is very similar to the other tools. You click on the feature ID and you can scroll through like this. And you can do a quick, let me just zoom out and I'll show you, let's see. All right. Okay. So examples of, here's a good example of a feature extension. So let me zoom back in a little bit more. So you can see that you have a couple of large blocks and Dent Road doesn't go all the way to the creek. So a feature extension was added in order to split that block into two. So if this is something that you would like to hold for 2020, you're going to need to assign a must hold to this. So you select the feature extension and click on must hold. Now, for most of the 2010 feature extensions, they are marked as ineligible by the Census software. So you're going to receive a message that says this edge feature is ineligible for use as a block boundary. Census administrators will review the request, enter justification statement. This is not required, but if you would like to provide some justification to help with the review, you can do that here. I'm going to go ahead and say no, and it'll assign a must hold to that feature extension. Later in the lesson, in the webinar, Lauren's going to be showing you how to flag features for must holds. So in this case, you would want to flag Dent Road as a must hold in order to form a polygon that would split these two faces into two blocks. Okay. Let me just go show you one more example. You have a number of choices here with this tool. You can either do must hold, or you can delete the linear feature, or you can ignore. Must hold flags the extension as a must hold for 2020. The delete marks the extension for deletion by the Census Bureau, and the ignore button simply, if you don't have a preference, you can choose to ignore, and the Census Bureau will assess whether or not the extension should be held. If you click on delete linear, it just says, are you sure you want to permanently delete this linear feature? You go ahead and say OK. And it'll actually put it down here at the bottom. So if you want to review it again and change your mind and make that a must hold, you can do that. And that's the 2010 feature extension review. And I think we'll pause at this time for some questions.
Again, participants, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name. One moment as questions register. One moment for our next question. Our next question comes from Bob Coates. Please state your organization.
Hi, this is Bob Coates with the state of North Carolina. Just had a question about the feature extensions. You mentioned that the 2010 extensions would not necessarily be held. We would need to review each of those and decide either to must hold them, ignore them, or eliminate them. But the feature extensions from 2010 will be included with the materials that we get for our state. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. And that's what the tool finds. And we can give you, if you decide to not use the GUPS software and you contact our office, we can tell you how you can identify those by looking at a combination of attributes in the field, in the file as well.
Okay, so for local users who may be choosing to use a commercial product or ArcGIS, we would need to get in touch with you.
Yeah, because we just want to, I don't have it in front of me, but it's a combination of sort of one field has a certain value in it and another field, it's a combination of a couple fields having certain values, and that will allow you to identify those feature extensions from 2010. So I just need to be at my desk so I can pull that information for you and share it with you. So if anyone is planning to do this in their own software, if they want to just send me an email or give me a phone call in the office either this afternoon or tomorrow, then we can tell you what that unique combination of characteristics is for the file.
Great, and you're going to be sharing your phone number and email address later?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a follow-up question from Mr. Nick Ferris. Please restate your organization.
Hi, Washington Secretary of State's office. Just to review and clarify, any linear extension that is used as a place or VTD or say legislative district boundary, that will automatically be held, right? So we don't need to worry about placing must holds on those.
Correct. Anything that is, in census jargon, we call it a geographic tabulation unit boundary. So anything that's something we tabulate data for. So we tabulate data for voting districts, we tabulate data for state legislative districts, congressional districts, places. Anything that's already being used as a boundary for those types of entities is going to automatically become a block boundary. The one thing you need to be cautious of is if it's a boundary now, but it might change between now and 2020, then it would not. So the flagging will guarantee that we'll consider it for holding should the geography change between now and the time that we create the census blocks for 2020.
So say it's a city boundary now, but there's an annexation that eliminates that. If it's that held, I got to hold it.
Exactly.
Thank you. At this time, I show no other questions.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next presenter. We have Lauren Kirsch from the Geography Division.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to talk about block boundary flagging next. And just to get me to my area, I'm going to do something that Jenny did before. I'm going to go over here to the search tool. And I'm going to go search by street name. And I'm going to navigate to Zilphia Place. And then I want to zoom out a little bit. Remember, your zoom tools are up here. Okay. And then for my demonstration, I don't want Zilphia selected right now. If you have a feature selected, you want to deselect it, you go up here, this tool will deselect your feature. All right. So block boundary flagging. You have the opportunity to flag features that you would like to be held as block boundaries and features that you would prefer not be held as block boundaries. The census will take your suggestions into account when creating the final 2020 tabulation blocks. The edges layer contains the 2020 planned block boundaries. So if the Census Bureau delineated the 2020 tabulation blocks today based on current features and boundaries, this is what the blocks would look like. So we're going to go over and look in the layers pane. If you look under the edges layer, we have the 2020 plan block boundaries, CBB flag equals 4. So, and it's symbolized in this light blue. So all these features that are symbolized in light blue, these are currently 2020 plan block boundaries. Then we have the light red features, like here, here, here. These are all currently ineligible block boundaries. And then we have some features that don't have any color on them. These are ones that are not currently designated as planned or ineligible because they were determined as not needed for blocks at this time. So there is a table in your guidelines called the Plan 2020 Tabulation Block Boundaries Table. I'm going to bring that up. So this shows the complete list of features that will always be held as block boundaries, and you don't need to memorize this. This is in your guidelines on page 6. You can see, just as James was kind of talking about before, many of the legal boundaries, statistical boundaries, boundaries of major landmarks, and major roads are automatically held as block boundaries. And then there's other features like local roads, alleys, railroads, perennial water that may or may not qualify as 2020 census tabulation block boundaries based on established criteria. And again, this is something that actually James just went over in a question. Just wanted to point out that the planned tabulation block boundaries that we provided in the edges layer, it may change if the block definition criteria changes or if a feature's attributes are updated through other census programs. For example, if a local neighborhood road currently serves as the current boundary of an incorporated place or town, it is currently flagged as a planned block boundary. However, if the boundary of the town changes before we determine the final 2020 tabulation block boundaries, then the local neighborhood road will be reevaluated to determine if it should still be held as a block boundary. So if you feel that the road should be held as a block boundary, even if it's not a place or town boundary, you may want to flag it with a must-hold flag. All right, so let's go back to GUPS. And let's try adding a must-hold block boundary flag. Candidates for assigning a must-hold block boundary suggestion flag are newly added features, features that are not currently planned as block boundaries, so those with no status assigned, or features that are already planned as 2020 block boundaries, but you want them held should their status change. So I'm going to go zoom in down here, go pick my magnifying glass with the plus. So right now, we can see these lines are all blue, so this is a planned 2020 block. But let's say I actually want this piece, this area to be its own block. So what I'll need to do is set a 2020 must-hold boundary flag on this line. So the way that I do that is that I use the blue flag, the feature flagging tool. I'm going to left click on there, and then I can click on my line, and I get this dialog box, and I can choose an action I want to hold and click OK. Once I do that, you can see the symbology on the line will change. It becomes a dark blue dashed line. You can look over here in your layers pane. You can see dark blue dashed line is a 2020 must hold block boundary. Now I'm going to go back to the zoom level I was at before. If you go up to your bar up here, if you pick the zoom last button, it brings me back to my last zoom level. So now I'm going to go over here. I also want to make Xelphia Place a must-hold boundary. So if you go and select the blue flag, that only lets you pick one line at a time. So if I want to select more than one feature at a time, I'll want to go up here to the feature selection tool. It lets me, in several different ways, select multiple features at once. So I'm going to pick select feature. I click on my first line. You can see it only selects this piece. If I hold down my control key and then left click again, it'll let me select multiple lines at once. So now I'll go over to my blue flag. It tells me I have two edges selected, and then I can pick my action of hold. Okay. So now let's talk about types of features that are good candidates for do not hold. Private roads, trails, unimproved roads, single line, hydrographic features are all good candidates for do not hold flags. So let's set a do not hold. Okay. So over here, right now you can see this area is a block. But let's say Fleming Avenue is actually a small private road, and I don't want this held as a block. I want this whole piece to be a block and get rid of this small block. So again, I'll use my selection tool, select my feature, go to my flag. You can see right now it's planned as a must-hold boundary. I'm going to change it to do not hold. And it just warns me that this line is a Census Bureau Plan 2020 tab block boundary and that my request will be reviewed. Okay, so now it has this red dashed line on top of it, and you can see that is the 2020 do not hold block boundary. If I somehow flagged Fleming Avenue by mistake, I actually didn't want to make that a must hold, all you do is you go back, if you select it again, go back to the blue flag, you can change it to null, and that will unflag it. Okay. So now I want to show you how to add a BBSP flag to an ineligible feature and how it asks you for a justification. So right over here next to Fleming Avenue, right now this road is flagged as a 2020 ineligible block boundary. But let's say there's been a lot of new construction in this block, this area, and I would really like this to be its own block, separate from the rest of this block. So I'll go in, This time I'll use select features by freehand. I'm going to left click and hold, and it lets me draw a polygon to select features. So this one actually, sorry, let me go back. This looks like, to me at least, like one segment, but if you go and select it, you'll see it's actually two segments. So you want to be careful of that when you're setting your must-hold flags. And we always want to, if you want a block, to create a block, you need to create a closed polygon. So you want to make sure if it's multiple segments, you're flagging all the segments to create a closed polygon. So I will make this a hold, and it's warning me that these features are ineligible for use as a block boundary, and census administrators will review the request. Do I want to enter a justification statement? As Drew explained before, justifications are optional, but the redistricting office is going to review all of these types of requests, and if you have a reason, I would encourage you to put it in. So since I have a reason and I know that this block split was requested, because of new construction, I'm going to put that in and click OK. All right, so next I'm going to talk about linear feature extensions. So Drew talked about reviewing the 2010 linear feature extensions, and I'm going to show how to add a linear feature extension. So let's go to a different area. All right, so over here, you see we have Huron Avenue and Leaf Bayou. Right now, this is one big block, but let's say I actually want this area to be a block right in here. I can't, if I just set the must-hold flags here, I'm going to leave this little gap and it can't be a block. So I want to add a linear feature extension between the edge of Huron Avenue and Leaf Bayou to create a closed polygon. As Drew explained before, a linear feature extension is a short, non-visible line, and it should be generally no longer than 300 feet in length. It should be a straight line from the end of the road, and it intersects a non-road feature. It could intersect a highway or a freeway. That's acceptable as long as there's no housing units on those roads. So linear feature extensions can be created to features with MTFCCs of levee, shoreline, dam, intermittent shoreline, railroad, pipeline, power line, and primary roads. All right, so I'm going to show you now how to draw a linear feature extension here. The linear feature extension tool is up here. It's this line with the green plus. So I'm going to click on that. I get a little warning reminding me what a linear feature extension is. Hit OK. I actually might zoom in here a little bit. I'll click it again. Then I'm going to left click on the end of Huron Avenue and just drag my mouse across. You can see that plus is, it's trying to snap to Leaf Bayou. So I'm going to left click. It's telling me my extension is 106 feet. That's good, I'm under 300, so yes, I'm going to save it. So when I do that, GUPS automatically flags my feature extension and the piece of feature that I drew the feature extension from with my must-hold block boundary. And you just want to make sure, remember, you want to create a closed polygon. So if Huron Avenue was more than one segment, it would only flag the segment automatically that I drew my linear extension from. Also, actually, this isn't set as a must-hold boundary right now, but I think I'm purposely going to leave it to see what happens during our QC. All right. So now I am going to save my project because, I don't know, with most computer software, you never know if something might go wrong. I'm going to save, just make sure I have my edits in there. Okay. So now I'm going to talk about the block size review. So to help you focus your BBSP review and pinpoint where you may want to add hold and do not hold flags, the Census Bureau assigned the 2020 plan tabulation blocks a block size indicator. The block size indicator is based on a range of the number of housing units in the block. So the block size review is an additional tool that the Census is providing as a courtesy to you, our participants. And please use it if you find it helpful to determine where you may want to set hold and do not hold flags. But it's an optional tool, so it's your choice whether you want to use it or not. So I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint slide that talks about the 10 block size categories. Okay. So the Census created 10 block size categories, A to Z, and the categories were established based on the thresholds for block groups and census tracts. Discrete number ranges were established for the purposes of assigning a block size category to each block. However, it's important to note that the actual number of housing units in a block is approximate. And the housing unit data used to calculate the block size is from the 2010 census. So let's say, for my project, I'm interested in having all of my blocks with a population, below 1,000. So maybe when I'm looking at this block size file, I might want to look at all of the blocks that are categorized A through D and try to split them. So let's go back to GUPS. I think as Jenny mentioned in the beginning, well, if you load your data from your CD, the block size shapefile will be in that folder where all your data is, but it doesn't automatically get loaded in GUPS in the beginning. So we have to add it. If you somehow did not load the data from the DVD, you'll have to go to the Census FTP site to download the shapefile. And the instructions for downloading the shapefile are in your guide on page 28. Or you can also link to the FTP page from the redistricting website by clicking on the Prototype 2020 Census Block link. So now I'll show you how to add the block size shapefile to the map as a layer. And this will be your BBSP_2015_block_ in your state county. So in this case, 47,157. So I go over here to the Add Vector Layer tool. You can leave your source type and your encoding the way it is. And then I'm going to go Browse. I'm going to go to my home directory, and look for my GUPS GIS folder. Then I'm going to go to GUPS data, BBSP, shape, maybe. Oh. Yes, so our census environment sometimes will slow down. I wouldn't expect this necessarily to happen on your computer. Yay, okay. Then I'm going to go to my state county that I'm working, 47157. And you can see here all my other shape files. And here's my BBSP block size layer. So I'm going to click on the shape, hit open, and hit open again. So you can see it added it to the top of the layers list. So let's right-click on the layer to open the attribute file so we can look at those block sizes. So I right-click, open attribute table. And then over to the right, we have the block size indicator column. It's BLKSZIND. I'm going to sort it. And it looks like the largest blocks that I have in this county are size D blocks. So the largest blocks that I have are 1,000 to 1,199. I don't have any blocks that are bigger than that. But since I wanted to try to split blocks that were larger than 1,000, let's go look at one of those D blocks. So I'm going to highlight the line in my attribute table and then go and click on the magnifying glass with the box that zooms my map to the selected rows. And then I'm going to minimize my attribute table so I can see the map. No. There we go. Okay. So here's my block. But actually, the way that I have this layer symbolized right now, I can't see any of the features below it. So I'm gonna change that before I continue. So the way that I change the symbology on this layer, I double-click it, and then I want to make it transparent. So I'm going to go and click on Simple Fill. I'm going to change my fill type to Transparent Fill. And then I'm going to go down here to the layer transparency, and I can either pull this to make the layer more transparent, or I can type in a number, and I'm going to hit apply, and then OK. So now I can still see that block that I highlighted, but now I can see the features below it. So this is good. Okay, so I want to split this block. Let's say I decide I'm going to use Wild Rye Lane as my block boundary. So just as we did before, I need to go and pick my blue flag and then click on the feature I want to hold as my must hold and change the action to hold, okay. So I just have split this block into 2 blocks. All right, so now I'm just going to show you one of the small blocks that are in our block size file. So in order to find the attribute table again, I'm going to go back to my queue down in my status bar and click attribute table. and I'm going to scroll down. I have a lot of very small blocks. The I blocks are the ones with no population. And I'm looking for a particular line. Let's see. Oh, yeah, sorry, it's not an I block, it's a Z block. That would be why I can't find it. The Z blocks are the one with no population. Okay, here we go. I'm going to zoom to the map. Okay. So here we are. Right now this area is a Plan 2020 block. It looks like a pretty small area. I'm going to go back and see if I can bring up the web mapping service that Jenny had earlier. So it looks like there really aren't any houses in this block. I'm kind of curious as to what this line represents, so I'm going to go over here and use my Identify Feature tool, click on this line. If I look at the MTFCC, it's a P0001, which means it's just an invisible block boundary, and it looks like right now it's not being held as any type of legal boundary. So I think I'm going to make this a do not hold. So I'll go over here, flag it as a do not hold. And again, I get the warning, Census Bureau will review your request. Okay. So that's how you use the block size review layer in GUPS. So I'm going to go and save my project again. And I think now we're ready for questions.
Again, participants, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name at this time. One moment for our next set of questions. I show no questions in the queue.
I just want to, it looked like we saw some questions that were being submitted through the chat window, but we can't see that here as we're conducting the webinar. So if anyone had a question that they submitted through the chat, if they'd like to do the *1 to ask that question at this time, we'd like to address it for you.
Excuse me, speakers. We have a question from Bryce. Please state your organization.
This is Kim Brace from Election Data Services in the state of Rhode Island. The question I had, which was one of the chats that I came up with, was are water features such as streams going to be held as a block boundary? It's not in the list of features that would be block boundaries.
So yes and no. The list that we provided are those things that you would consider guaranteed block boundaries. They will be held regardless of any other operation that occurs. What happens is we go through the feature list and the MTFCC list, the feature class codes, and we provide them with a priority. So streams and shorelines all have different priorities, and as we go through the requirements about making a block and what makes a good block, the features that make up the boundaries of those blocks are evaluated, and depending on sort of a complicated relationship between the size of the block and the features that make the bounding features, it's evaluated to decide whether or not to keep it. So the answer is a complicated yes and no.
So if my precinct boundary happens to go along a stream, then I need to flag it as a must-hold then?
You should, unless you expect to use it as a precinct boundary at the time we go through the VTD portion of the program. But I think from a safety level, if you know that you want it now and you may want it from a historical perspective, even if your precinct moves off of it, then it would be best to flag it as a must-hold now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Our next question is from Nick Ferris. Please state your organization.
Hi, Washington Secretary of State's Office. I just wanted to check. There is no way you can add a layer, say from a county data source, for adding linear features or figuring out what might make a good block. But then you actually have to mouse trace over it, right? There's no way to actually trace that line or copy it into GUPS, correct?
Yeah, there is not currently the ability to pull from your user-supplied file and sort of copy and insert that feature into one of our layers that we would then use for an update. So you would have to do the manual heads-up digitizing based on that as a guide.
Okay, thank you.
At this time, I show no further questions.
All right. Well, so we'll move on to the next presenter, which is going to be Drew Stanislaw again, and he's going to talk about some of the quality control measures that we have in the tool.
All right. So let's say that you're all done with all of your updates. You're ready to submit your data to the Census Bureau. You go up here on the top. You say export to zip. Maybe. There we go. And up pops a window that says quality control reviews needed. So if you have done any of these quality control reviews, it'll print the status and it'll print the time that it was done. What we would recommend is that you conduct some of these QCs along the way, like we did, and then also again at the end, so you can get a sense of when it was done. So there's 5 different quality control reviews. The first 2 are for change polygons are only needed if you created any modifications to areas, like area landmarks or legal entities that were demonstrated earlier. The review block boundary and the feature extension review and the closed polygon check are for the BBSP flagging. And I'll go over all of these quality reviews, but I just wanted to show you before you export, it's going to say that you need to do all these checks, and it will not allow you to export until you've at least run the check. So I'll go ahead and cancel this. And I'll just point out the feature extension review is actually the 2010 feature extension review, so I'm not going to show that again. So there's really 4 quality checks if you've already done the 2010 feature review. Okay. Up on your toolbar, you'll see the QC tools up here. So you have review block boundary, geography review tool, review change polygons, and the closed polygon check. The first one that I'm going to demonstrate is the block boundary review. So go ahead and click on that, and a dialog box will pop up. And this tool is pretty simple. It's just a basic review of any of the must holds or the do not holds that you flag during your review. So we'll start with the holds. we'll do a quick query and pull up everything that you assigned a must hold to. And just like the other tools, you can use the arrows to zoom through and review what you held. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out a little bit. So this is a Zilphia place that Lauren demonstrated. So you can see that she placed a hold on that. If you decide later that you do not want to hold that actually, you can say do not hold. So you can always change your mind later. And then you can also, if you want to just reset it to whatever its original value was, you can just click on null. So we'll just go ahead and click to the next one and zoom out a little bit. And you can see, okay, that looks good. Again, it's just kind of, there's Huron Avenue that Lauren assigned, Wild Rye Lane, rather, sorry. And you can just do a quick review of these if you like. And if you want to change your mind, you can, for example, you can make this, let's say, oh, you know, this was the one that you thought the block size was too big and you wanted to split it, and maybe you change your mind. You can actually change that to a do not hold or change it back to null. Okay. The same sort of thing, you can do a quick query on the do not holds and review those. We only assigned 2 of these. You'll probably remember that one. And let's see here. Okay, and then this one again. Okay, so the one that I just assigned actually appears on that list. So that's a pretty simple review tool, but it's required to run prior to export. It just gives you, the opportunity to review all line segments that you flagged as a must hold or a do not hold. The second one is the geography review tool, and I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to skip that for now and go to the review change polygons. Let me go ahead and close this one so we don't get too many windows open. Okay, so the review change polygon tool is a really important one because you want to review any of the area feature modifications that you made. So we did some area landmark and we did some place changes. So let's go ahead and look at the area landmark, area hydrography. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. Okay. So on this toolbox, you have two main checks. You have a small area check and you have a find whole check. So you select your geography and you click on small area check. You can see it displays the acres, so I think we'll be fine on the small area check. Give it just a second here. All right, let me give it one more second. Here we go. All right, no change polygons smaller than 500 square feet are present. So let's say that you, created an annexation to an incorporated place, and while you're selecting all the faces, you missed maybe a small face. So that's really what this check is looking for. Or maybe you selected, actually this is more like if you select a really small face that you didn't really mean to. So we don't want any slivers or really small faces that were accidentally selected, and this will identify those. So go ahead and hit OK there. You can do find holes, and no holes are present. So we're going to go ahead and do the same check on the incorporated place layer that we worked on. We'll do the small area check. Actually, maybe I'll skip that one since it seemed to be a little slow, but I'll just do it. It shouldn't take long. Okay, there we go. Worked fast that time. No change polygon smaller than 500 feet. And then we'll do the find holes check. And down here, you can see that in this dialog box, the review tool, it identified one hole. So if you remember from earlier, we created Census Town, and we forgot to select all of the polygons, all the faces, and there was a hole here. So what you can do, nifty little tool here, you just hit Fix, and it'll fill in the hole. And under the hole review, it says no more holes. All right. The other thing that you can do is if you, let's say, let's go back to Bartlett City. So if let's say that you created a boundary change and you actually, you know, that's a mistake, and you say, no, I didn't really want that. You can go up here. There's an option that you can delete the change polygon, and it'll again say, are you sure you want to permanently delete this change polygon? And you can say yes, and that change polygon will be removed and not submitted to the Census Bureau. Another thing that you can do with this review tool is there's a button that says legal entity change. If you click on that, you can update the legal entity change. So you can change, let's say, the effective date was incorrect. It's really January 4th. We can do that. Okay. So that's the review change polygon tool. We'll go ahead and close these windows. And that tool, again, is required if you did any modifications to area landmarks or legal entities. The last required check is the closed polygon check, and this is really important for BVSP because if you don't close all the polygons, they might not be saved as block boundaries. So we'll go ahead and click Find. And 3 different ones came up. Let's go ahead and check those. So we have Wild Rye Lane that Lauren worked on, and you can see that there was a little line segment up here that did not get flagged. So what you want to do here to fix that is go ahead and select your flagging tool. And actually, let me do that. I need a select my line there, I think, right? Let's do it. Okay. And then go ahead and hold that. Click OK. And we'll go ahead and save your changes. Okay. And if you did everything right, you can do the close polygon check again. Let me just, yeah, that's what I did. Going a little bit slow here, but it should do another search, and if you close the polygon, then the close polygon check should not bring up the Wild Rye Lane again, Wild Run. All right. We'll just give this another second. While we're waiting for that, there's one other QC tool, which is a geography review tool. And that one is the one that is not mandatory. And I'll show you that in a minute. But okay, here we go. Find again. And Wild Rye Lane is no longer on your list, so that did what it was supposed to do. All right, let's check out the other two real quick. And we have Dent Road here. So this was one of the, if you remember, this was the 2010 feature extension review, and we flagged this as a must hold, but we didn't do the entire line segment. So if you want to save these as two different blocks, you would need to flag that as well. I'm not going to do it at this point, but, and then Huron Avenue is the other one. So this was the one that Lauren flagged as a must hold. She created a feature extension, but she didn't close the polygon. So if you wanted to close the polygon, you would select a line segment and then do the flag and say hold, say okay. And then you can see the combination between the blue lines and the blue dotted lines, you have a closed polygon. Okay. So then the last QC tool that we have is geography review tool. And I'm not going to go into this one too much, but this is a really useful tool to do all sorts of queries and reviews of your data. If you look in the layer name, it displays all the layers that you have active in your table of contents. You can look at the changes like to incorporated places that you are submitting, and it lists all the attribute data. You can review the change type, the authority type, all that sort of information. You can search here on column name. So if you want to just find, if you want to look for a particular place and just type in, if you just want to see your changes in Bartlett City, you can do that and do a search. So it's a pretty useful review tool, but this is not one of the ones that is mandatory. So that's pretty much all the review tools. After you do them, you want to make sure that you save so that it records that. And then when you export your data, which Jenny's going to show you, it'll display the most recent time that you did the QC check. All right. Do we want to do questions, or should I just pass it on? Okay, I'm going to pass it on to Jenny.
Hello again. I get to start and I get to end. So the work that I've done, Lauren's done, and Drew has done, you can see there's many parts to making these updates for BBSP. But we're ready. We've done what we needed to do. We've reviewed, we've QC'd. So we're going to export our data. And this is the export to zip option. And when it pops up, you'll see we have two options available. Oh wait, it's reminding me of any QC, but everything says done, so we can proceed. So you can see I have two options for exporting my data. I can share my data, all the layers, all the changes with another participant. This would be helpful if I was doing the work for a state liaison and I wanted to share the data with the liaison for the liaison to submit the data to Census. Or if I am the liaison, I can export the data for Census. So I'm going to play the role of both, and we'll go over where I'm not the liaison first, that I want to share this data with the liaison. So I click Share with Another Participant, hit OK, and this will take a minute to load. You'll definitely see there's a difference between the types of zip files that are created if I'm exporting to another participant, the state liaison, or if I'm exporting to Census, which we'll see in a second. Okay, So you can see the export zip was created. It tells me where it's located. It's back in that GUPS GIS folder. And you can see that for the option to share the data, the name is data directory. And it asks me if I want to view the folder, so I'll take a quick look. Okay, so you can see BBSP16, Shelby County, data directory.zip. So I'm going to take off my not state liaison hat and put on my state liaison hat to export, to prepare a zip to export and submit to Census. Again, export to zip. It always wants to make sure we're doing QC, which is good. Okay, in this time, I'm actually going to select export to Census, export for Census. So when we export for Census, it's just going to compile the layers that have been changed by the work that we've done, rather than exporting all the files that are exported with Share Another Participant. So again, it tells me where it is and asks me if I want to view the folder, and let's do that. And like I said, for data directory, that's where you're sharing. Not doing it. We click up, there it goes, of course. If we click on the zip file, we see that everything's included. There's 116 different files. If we look at the return zip, you can see there's 36. And those compile the layers that have changes in them. Okay, so we've compiled our export to Census option. How do we actually get that to Census? Well, we're going to use the secure web incoming module. Census will not be accepting submissions via email. Everything has to come in through SWIM. So I pulled up SWIM ahead of time. It's included in the materials. It's respond.census.gov/SWIM. If you do not have an account right now, you go to register account. And the first thing it asks for is your SWIM registration token. This was included with your invitation letter. If you don't remember what it is, give us a call at RDO office and we'll tell you what it is. However, only state liaisons receive the registration token because they are the ones submitting the file. So you go through, add your information. We do have a password recovery option, so make sure you remember your security question. But since I work at Census, I already have a SWIM account, so I'm going to log in. Okay, so when you log in, it welcomes you, and it also shows files that you have already submitted for different operations in the name, as well as files that were in progress but not submitted. So I'm going to start a new upload. I'm going to look, it's asking me what census state program I'm submitting for. So I see redistricting, but I'm careful to make sure I'm selecting BBSP. Select a state. We'll go down to Tennessee. Next. And it asks me to add the zip file. So I navigate to that GUPS folder. We'll do it by name. So the GUPS GIS folder, data, GUPS data, BBSP. And this time it's going to be located in the output. We exported files, so it's output. And remember, I'm exporting this to Census, so I'm going to select the return option. And I'm going to cancel right now before I accidentally submit this to SWIM and then somebody has to go clean it out for me. You can additionally put in any comments you have, and you just hit next, and the file is submitted. So that wraps up the last block that we went over about QC, submitting the files, and we've gone through our journey and we're on to the final questions and answers. So now's your chance. if you have any lingering questions or questions about what we just went over.
Once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press *1 and record your name. One moment for final questions. We have a question from John Yeager. You may begin.
By what date do you need the submissions from each state?
So the submission window is open through May 31st. We're hoping that states will flow those submissions to us so we can get those processed, because our goal is to have them all in to the MAP Tiger system in time to produce the verification materials that we'll send out in December of next year. So May 31st is the absolute deadline to have the submissions in, and we're hoping for a flow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question comes from Amy Dittner. Please state your organization.
Yeah, this is Amy Dittner, and I'm with the state of Wyoming. I had a couple questions. On your guys' 2020 blocks that you came up with, I'm curious, how did you guys come up with that? Like, what methodology did you use? Did you just want to downsize the number of blocks from, like, 2010?
So, yes, we do want to downsize the number of blocks that from what we created in 2010 and try to get down to something more like what we had in 2000. But what we've done is we have developed the algorithm, the software that we use to create the blocks for 2020 early in order to support this program. Typically in the past, we had to indicate to block boundary participants based on sort of just the MTFCC codes about what we thought would be a block boundary, whereas what we've done now is we've actually run the entire software, which goes through a process of building sort of a base level of atomic geography, and then it dissolves through things based on the size of the block that was created, and until it tries to come to block boundaries that make sense. When I say make sense, it's trying to eliminate things like clover leaves being held as blocks at interstate on-ramps. So what we did is we developed the software, we ran it and had 8 states do a review with us as sort of an external test. We took their feedback and we made some adjustments to how the software runs, and what you see now is what we feel is pretty close to what the final software will be and the output from that.
Okay. I have another question. So obviously, you know, BAS is going to affect, you know, the boundaries and stuff, especially since, you know, this software is going to be, you know, BAS participants want to use this software for their updates. Since the geography people are there, are you guys planning on putting on any trainings or webinars to, like, local governments to use this software for BAS?
I'm getting a nod from the branch chief over BAS.
What kind of nod? Side to side,
yes.
or?
Yeah.
Yes, this is Brian Short. Yes, I'm over BAS, and there will be webinars for BAS, just like the one we're doing for PISA or BBSP right now.
Okay. What's your guys' time frame for doing them? Do you know?
Typically, what we like to do is we like to get the materials out there to the participants so they can use it for like a month or maybe a month and a half, so they have the stuff, they have the software, and they've had a chance to play around with the application. And then we have a webinar. It most likely it will be in February, mid-February time frame. And as we get more materials put together for that and a timeline, we'll put that up on the web. And so our participants will see when it's going to be held and all the contact information to participate. But usually it's right around the middle of February sometime, once materials have been out there for a while.
So it's gonna this software is gonna go out with their BAS materials?
Oh yes, certainly. In fact, the first 2 programs to use this new software will be BBSP and BAS. So it's been sent out to all the BAS participants that are participating in this cycle of BAS.
Okay.
Thank you. We have 2 additional questions in the queue. Our next question comes from Ms. Wright. Please state your organization.
Hi, this is Gina Wright with the state of Georgia. I just have a quick question about the submission with the SWIM module. When you are doing the uploading of the files, are you able to upload more than one county file at a time, or is it only a single, one at a time as you submit those?
Let me look at someone in the room who's more of a SWIM expert than I, and we'll see if we get an answer from him.
Okay.
You upload multiple attachments in a single form on the SWIM module. You just attach more than one zip file.
Okay, so in that box, when you were selecting those, you can just keep adding multiple ones so you can submit them all at once?
Yes, and that would be preferred over multiple submissions for sure, because every time you hit the submit button, we get an email.
Okay, great. Well, that's what I wanted to be sure. We try to break it up into sections is what we've done before, so
yeah.
Wanted to make sure I could just send those, in one big file.
You can, yeah, please do.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Speakers, we have one final question. It comes from Mr. Nick Ferris. You may begin.
Nick Ferris, Secretary of State in Washington. A couple questions. One, are urban growth areas involved in this? I think it's only us in Oregon who provide them. Would those fall under like area landmarks?
No, urban growth areas will be handled through the BASS program. If you see some areas for urban growth areas that you want to have modified, the tool that we have right now doesn't allow you to do them. But you can just contact us, and I know, Nick, that I know you're a GIS guy, so we can work out how to get those submitted if you want to submit them through redistricting as opposed to BASS. But it's really a BASS update for UGAs.
The other question was, if I do choose to farm some of this out to some of our more GIS-savvy counties, is there the possibility of a similar kind of webinar for those participants?
Yes, well, what we're doing today is we're recording the one that we're going through right now, and we'll be able to send that to you if you want to be able to share that. We can't post it to the web because it's not a 508 compliant recording, but we can send you the file so you can view it and you can share it. We can also provide support if you plan to do something with the counties. We can come out and do an in-person training where you pull the county individuals into a central location, and we can do sort of an in-person training there. So we have some options. So if that's what you plan to do, we'll work with you to make sure that you get the support you need.
Thank you.
Operator?
And I'll turn the call back over to you for final remarks.
Actually, Operator, I saw a comment on the WebEx. Somebody said no questions were going through. So if you have a question, it's *0.
*1.
*1. Casey Dunn, we saw it pop up on the screen at chat.
Oh, okay.
Okay, excuse me, Casey, if you're on the line, please press *1 at this time.
Thank you, Operator.
One moment for additional questions.
Okay.
And excuse me, we have one other question. No name was recorded. Your line is now open.
I realize now why that wasn't working. I'm sorry, I had it on mute. Old habits. My name is Casey Dunn. I'm with the Nebraska State Legislature, and I do have a question relating to the SWIM account. Because my boss, the director, actually has the account, would I be able to register that account, or should I get a separate account to the SWIM account?
You want to do a two-step process. You want to have, if your boss is the one who got the SWIM account, you'll want to have him send us a message saying that he's making you a technical lead.
Okay.
And then we will issue you a SWIM account of your own, a SWIM account number of your own. So he'll still have his because those numbers are unique and they're a one-time use only.
Okay.
So he'll have that one for himself or herself, and then we'll get you one of your own. We just need you to be designated as a technical lead, and what that'll also do is set you up to receive future communications from the program as it occurs.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, speakers. We have two additional questions that have been added to the queue. Would you like to entertain those questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, our next question comes from Matt Tesler. Please state your organization.
This is Matt Hesser. I'm with the state of Missouri. This goes back to the example that you had of the Z block or the zero block that we then were using a non-visible do not hold line, and we labeled that line as do not hold, which then deleted the zero block. My question is, I mean, is there functionality in this program so that we could go through and identify all of those non-visible features and then also maybe highlight the zero blocks so you could, you know, speed up that process of trying to find those zero block slivers and know which block to attach those to?
So you can use, the way Lauren demonstrated opening the attribute table of that block size, the prototype block with the block size indicator field, you can use that to sort of find the records that are all the Z records and jump from one to one to evaluate it. Or you can, since that's a shapefile, you can always bring it in and do a symbology change to it where you only display the blocks that have the Z value and that type of work. Or you could take it into your own system and delete everything that's not what you want to do and then put it back into GUPS. So you could do some of those kind of things to identify it and then use that to jump one by one to review it and see if you want to, if there's a reason that you want to keep it or a reason you want to remove it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there's no custom tool that's built for that though. You have to sort of work through the attribute function.
Thank you. We have a question from Amy Dittner. Please state your organization.
Yeah, this is Amy Bittner again with the state of Wyoming. I had a follow-up question to the question that was asked earlier about this recorded presentation. You guys mentioned that you'd email it to us, but you guys couldn't put it on your website. Would you guys have any issues of it being posted to, like, other websites?
No, I wouldn't have any issues. It's not protected in any way. It's just a matter of it doesn't have the 508, the disability accessibility functions built into it, and so that's why we can't post it to our site because that's a requirement for us. But if you want to post it to your site, that's fine.
Okay.
And I show no other questions in the queue.
All right. Well, I just want to take this chance to thank you all very much for your participation. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this. We're looking forward to a very successful block boundary suggestion project. The Census Redistricting Data Office is here to support you in this effort. We are willing to provide trainings if needed. We will answer any questions that you have, so please do not be shy about contacting us. Our number's up on the screen here, 301-763-4039. Jenny will be a primary technical expert, and I'll be available as well. And we can also be reached at the rdo@census.gov email. So we look forward to working with you, and we appreciate your efforts, and we hope this will be a great BBSP for you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time. Speakers, please stand by for the post-conference.